Akhandam Sachitanandam Avang Manasagocharam Atmanamakiladharam Ashrayebhishta Siddhaye Arthatopyapyadvayanandan Atitadvaita Bhanatah Gurunaradhya Vedanta Saram Vakshye Yathamati. So this is the Mangalacharanam of Vedantasara, and we have covered a few um, text sentences. Basically, it's in the text form, isn't it? The remaining after the first two shlokas, which are the Mangalacharanam. So the text goes explaining. I've put in the headings as well, so those who can follow the screen. So the first text was what is Vedanta? What is meant by Vedanta? Vedanto nama Upanishad pramanam tat upakarini shariraka sutradini. So he said Vedanta is nothing but what has been taken from the Upanishad, then the Shariraka Sutra and Adini. So Brahma Sutras and texts like Bhagavad Gita. So whatever the essence that has been gathered from these texts is Vedanta, is what is said. And then the next item that was picked up was Anubandha Chatushtayam, which is the usual way in which texts are written. First with a Mangalacharanam, that is a method, and then Anubandha Chatushtayam. So these are four preliminary questions regarding the purpose of the book. Asya Vedanta Prakaranatvat Tadiyaihi Tadiyaihi Eva Anubandhaihi Tadvatta Siddhehe Nate Prutak Alochaniya. So essentially, he said that whatever Anubandha Chatushtaya, the four preliminary questions that are relevant for all those resources, the reference texts that we are talking about, like Upanishad, Brahma Sutras, and so on. The same applies to this book because it is nothing but a condensation, concise form of those reference sources. So I don't need to specifically, prutak, separately mention those. Nevertheless, he goes about mentioning the four. What are those four preliminary questions that a text likes to kind of fashion itself upon? They are adhikari, vishaya, sambandha, and prayojanam. Adhikari means who is that eligible reader or the aspirant of this knowledge. Second is Vishaya. What is the subject matter that is being conveyed through this book? Third is Sambandha. What is the relation between the subject matter and the reference texts? And fourth is the prayojanam, the benefit from reading this book. So he goes about discussing those things, and the first is quite extensively discussed, which is the adhikari. So adhikari tu vidhivat adhita veda vedangatvena apatatah adhigata akila vedarthaha अस्मिन् जन्मनि जन्मान्तरे वा काम्य निषिद्ध वर्जन पुरस्सरं नित्य नैमित्तिक प्रायश्चित्त उपासना अनुष्ठानेन निर्गत निखिल कल्मषदया नित नितान्त निर्मल स्वान्तः साधन चतुष्टय संपन्नः प्रमाता. So it's a long sentence. Essentially, it lays about the rules or what are the criteria, I must say, for the adhikari. Who is the adhikari? Eligible aspirant, the eligible student. So there is a discipline that the eligible student has to follow, a discipline that was already kind of set in stone from ancient times. So vidhivat. Adhita Veda Vedangatvena, and having kind of mastered, let us say, or studied Veda and its auxiliary texts, Vedanga, and whatever knowledge that has come from it, and it may be during this life, Asmin Janmani, or Janmantare, or in lives before, having obtained that knowledge, then performance and non performance of actions, non performance of kamya actions, which are actions with desire in mind. Nishiddha are forbidden actions, forbidden by the texts, the scriptures. So, not to be done. So, those are not to be done. Varjana Purassaram. Then, what are to be done? Nitya and Naimittika. So, Nitya are the optional, but at the same time to be done on a regular basis, daily, for instance, like Sandhya Vandanam. And Naimittika are special occasions, like there are Shodashopachara, uh, 16 kind of rituals that a person tends to go through in their life from birth till death, including birth and including death. So, Antyeshti is the last one. And I think let me just see what is the one at birth called. Birth one is,
Isn't Janma Sanskar?
yeah, Jateshti. So it's called Jateshti. Yeah, it's mentioned in 10 in Naimittika. Okay. So Jateshti and Antyeshti, and in between there are so many other samskars. Shodasha samskaras, I must say. I think I said something else. Shodashopachara. No, it's Shodasha samskaras. 16 samskaras. So those are the Naimittika. And then the Prayaschitta is penance. Penance to be taken up to atone our sins. And Upasana is the one, a kind of devotion that we would develop towards the manifest form of the Brahman or the Paramatma. So, the manifest form, why that so? Because it is not easy to kind of fix your attention, focus your mind on something which is abstract or formless. So, when we actually sit in meditation, we may say, for instance, meditate upon your Ishta Devata, your god of your lineage, or on the rising sun, or on the sound of flowing river, or something like so flowing stream. So there is a form that we are actually trying to kind of meditate upon. Anushtanena nirgata nikila kalmashataya. So having done all that, what happens is your sins are kind of obliterated, and then you develop a pure mind, nitanta nirmala swanta. Then sadhana chatushtaya sampanna pramata. Pramata is the, again we go back to four terms: pramata, prameya, prama, and pramanam. What we want to achieve, the knowledge is prama, or the goal is, similarly, the goal is prameyam. So let us say I want to become Brahman. I want to realize that I am the Brahman. That is prameyam. And who is actually wanting to do it? That person is pramata, which in other words is the adhikari here. And what is the method that is being followed? That is the pramanam. Okay, so and then there is this concept of sadhana chatushtayam. I think we covered it the last time. Um, Sadhana chatushtayam includes viveka, vairagya, shat sampatti, and mumukshatvam. All these are mentioned later on, so we will cover them anyway. Kamya karma, then he goes about to talk about Kamya karma, which is Kamyani Swargadi Ishta Sadhanani Jyotishtomadhini. What are not to be done? Uh, Actions with desire in mind are not to be done. So it is mentioned here. The Nishiddha karma, forbidden actions. Nishiddhani narakadi ishta sadhanani brahmana hananadini. So kamya karma example I haven't mentioned is going to heaven or having this desire to go to heaven. So those are not to be encouraged or done. Nishiddha karma, anything that actually takes you down to the path of going to hell, or things like, for instance, killing of the saintly people like Brahmanas. So that are forbidden, those are forbidden actions. Nitya karma, we already spoke about them. I don't need to cover again because we're summarizing what we did last session. Naimityaka karma was also covered. Now, this is where we need to, oh, I think I skipped a lot. Now I understand why that is happening. Then continue scroll. Okay. Okay, so we need to start with this now. Yeah, so we are at 11. Okay, if you want to read the book, that is fine. If not, you can read the screen as well. Prayaschitta, Prayaschittani Papakshaya Sadhanani Chandrayanadini. So nothing much to mention here. We've already covered. So this is to atone our sins and what are the kind of rituals one may follow to do so. Next one is Upasana. Upasanani Saguna Brahma Vishaya Manasa Vyapara Rupani Shandilya Vidyadhini. Okay, so we mentioned about Saguna Brahma. So there are two concepts here, two words to remember, Nirguna Brahma and Saguna Brahma. Nirguna Brahma is the unmanifest cosmic oneness. It has no form, no beginning, no end. It does not go through changes and so on and so forth. But how is it able to then become Saguna Brahma if it does not change? The way it has been explained, which is very important, is that when the cosmic oneness or the Nirguna Brahma comes in contact with Maya or Avidya, the creative aspect of it. So Maya is made up of creative matter, which is the three gunas, sattva, rajas, tamo gunas. And when it comes into contact, it appears in a form, or it appears as if it has a form, or it comes into action. The other way to put it, to simplify it, if we go down the route of using Sankhya Darshana, is it is an inevitable journey that at one point of time, the cosmic oneness has to become active in creating matter or in creation. It doesn't directly engage in creation, but it becomes intertwined with Maya, the creative force, which then leads to the entire creation. Now, what is the difference between Maya and Brahman? Brahman is intelligent and it is the soul state, soul, let us say. Whereas Maya is non-intelligent and it is inert substance. It is inert. So it does not have life as such, or it doesn't have the intelligence in it. So when they both come into contact with each other, the form form and name, let us say, form and name take place. So this we start naming things thereafter, because there are other things that come out of this creation. So there is the Mahat. Again, I'm quoting Sankhya. So from that creation, from that avidya or the prakriti comes out the Mahat, which is the um, let us say the created intelligence, one substance, one whole intelligence. And from that comes the ahankara, which is the identification into single units. So identification into single units. And then thereafter, because once there is identification of single units, then it leads to a cascade effect of so many things being created. Without going into, therefore, too many details there, Saguna Brahma is the form that is the reason why Maya is able to produce the entire creation. And it being the manifest form of the Atman, it is there in everything that is created. And it makes everything move. An example would be, for instance, a fan. A fan on its own is inert substance. It does not move, but it is made of the substance. The current which flows through it is not part of the fan. It is not made of those, the metal, the same metal that the fan has been made with. But unless the current flows through the fan does not move. It does not rotate. So similarly, Maya is producing everything that it is supposed to produce, like for instance, this body. But this body doesn't really function unless there is the Chaitanya in it, that is the soul. That is what comes from the Saguna Brahma. As much as we can relate to at this point of time over there, that is sufficient. So Upasana is nothing but us maintaining a level of focus in a meditative state on that form of the Brahman, Saguna Brahma. Saguna, Nirguna. Guna is nothing but an attribute. Saguna, the Brahman which has an attribute. Nirguna, the Brahman which has no attributes. So that's what it means basically. So Vishaya Manasa Vyapara Rupani. So what is it that is being mentioned here is it's a mental activity of meditation upon a form. And there is a method that is being mentioned here, which is Shandilya Vidya. I don't know much about Shandilya Vidya, but apparently it is something which is mentioned in Mundakopanishad. Okay. So what are we talking about? We're talking about Adhikari, the eligible student. And we have looked at what an eligible student should do, should read Vedas and Vedangas, should follow a particular routine, should not do certain actions, and should do certain actions, should do some penance or prayaschitta to atone their sins, and then should also do upasana, meditate upon the Saguna Brahman. Okay, can I proceed? Okay. So then we look at benefits of following the above measures. Etesham nityadinam buddhishuddhi param prayojanam. That is one sentence. Upasananam tu chittaikagriyam tam etam atmanam vedanu vachanena Brahmana vivishanti yajnena, as said in Brihadaranyaka. Ityadi shrutehe, as said in the Shruti. I'll anyway mention the details. Tapasa kalmasham, tapasa kalmasham hanti ityadi smrutescha. So etesham nityadinam. Etesha means of these, of what? Nitya and so on. Nitya and so on means all those actions. Nitya karma and Naimittika karma, doing those. Kamya karma and Nishiddha karma, not doing those. Of these actions, what is the result? Buddhi Shuddhihi Param Prayojanam. The most important benefit of performing and non-performing actions, respectively, is purification of the mind. It is understandable that when we actually kind of have a set routine, it generally makes our mind quite relaxed and nice, isn't it? Waking up at a particular time in the morning, having food at a particular time, being on time to work, making sure that we submit things on time. Naturally, all those have very positive effects on our own self. So nothing spectacular there. Then upasananam tu, but of the upasanas performing the benefits of upasana tu, chittaikagryam, concentration of the mind. So when we are meditating upon something, when we are devoted, we are focusing on something, right? As a result, there is that concentration. Yeah. So the benefit is the concentration of the mind. And then apparently Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says, Tam etam atmanam vedānuvachanena brahmanaha vivishanti yajnena. So what do brahmanas do, the learned people? They perform yajna, the fire sacrifices. Brahmanas perform yajna, and through the yajna, they basically seek to know, vivishanti, seek to know what is it that they want to know. Tam etam atmanam. Now, interestingly, this and that is mentioned. So, this and that atma, they want to know this and that atma. Through reading also, not only through yajna, but also by reading the Vedic scriptures, Vedic passages, Veda Anuvachanena. So, by reading Vedas and also through yajna, where they want to know this and that Atma. Why is it being mentioned as this and that Atma? It goes to the Mahavakyas, which are like Aham Brahmasmi, Tat Tvam Asi. So there, Tat means that, Tvam means you. So this and that comes from that. So they want to know the relation between that Atman, which is the Paramatma, and this Atma, which is the Jivatma which is in you, and the Paramatma, which is the cosmic oneness. They want to know by reading the Vedas and through yajnas about the common oneness in this Atma. Ityadi Shrutehe. Like this, Shrutis, the heard scriptures mention. Then Smriti. Smritis are, you can say, commentaries and further texts written inspired by the Shrutis. And so one of the examples given is Tapasa Kalmasham Hanti. When we do tapas, for instance, one of the rituals, let us call it Nitya Karma. Kalmasham Hanti, through that, the sins are all destroyed. So the benefits are being mentioned as to what are the benefits we get by performing and non-performing certain actions. Then further benefits. Nitya naimitikayoho upasananam tu avantara phalam पितृलोक सत्यलोक प्राप्तिः कर्मणा पितृलोकः विद्यया देवलोकः इत्यादि श्रुतेः. So nitya naimitikayoho, so it's in dual case. So dual case means when those two are being mentioned. Of those, what are the benefits? What benefits? These are secondary benefits. Avantara phalam. Earlier, we have seen the direct result. Now we are seeing like byproducts, byproducts of following this. If you perform nitya naimittika karmas, then you're likely to go to pitraloka, the plane of the ancestors. Upasananam tu satyaloka praptihi. Performing upasanas lead you to go to devaloka or the heaven. So karmana pitrulokaha, when we say karma here, we are talking about nitya and naimittika karma. And vidyaya devalokaha, through the vidya or the knowledge. What knowledge? Upasana kind of knowledge, which is very much about saguna brahma, nothing to do with nirguna brahma. We need to keep that in mind. So if it was nirguna brahma, we will be talking about moksha. But here we are not talking about nirguna brahma, but it is a form. So one can infer directly that if we focus only on form, does it mean that we won't go to attain moksha? Bhagavad Gita also very clearly says that the one who actually invests himself in me will get me, but if they are actually worshipping anything else in a form or a devata form, they will reach those planes only, and they will return back again to take life, another life. It is very clearly mentioned. So there is consistency. Okay, so Devaloka is nothing but heaven only. This is not the same as attaining moksha. Okay, so then means to attain knowledge, sadhanani. What are those means? Nitya, now this is a very important sloka, text. Nitya nityanitya vastu viveka iha ihamutrartha phalabhoga viraga shamadi shatka sampatti mumukshatvani. So there are four sadhanani mentioned here, four means to attain knowledge. First is nitya anitya vastu viveka. That will be explained in the next one anyway. Second is iha amutra arthapala bhoga viraga. Third is shamadi shatka sampattihi. Fourth is mumukshatvam. We will look at all those four one by one. So the first is discriminating the real from unreal or the permanent from transient using our viveka or buddhi. And again, Bhagavad Gita clearly says, of all the tools, viveka is the most efficient, most important, most superior. More superior than viveka is the atma, is said. But in a physical body, of all the tools that we have, what are the tools? Our body itself is a physical vehicle, itself is the tool with the hands and feet and whatnot. Then, of course, the indriyas, the sense organs, and so on. Then your ahankara and manas. And then all these they report to the intelligence, the intellect. That is the buddhi. And that is where the viveka is. And using viveka, we need to figure out what is transient and what is permanent, what is sat and what is not sat, what is asat. So nitya anitya vastu vivekah tavat brahmaiva nityam vastu, number one, tataha anyat akhilam anityam iti vivechanam. So nitya anitya vastu, vastu in our languages is a thing, so we'll keep it that way. Vastu is a thing. Viveka, ability to discriminate. What is nitya? He says nitya is only the Brahma. Brahma eva. Brahma alone is the nityam vastu. Full stop. Then tataha, thereafter, anyat, everything else. Akhilam. Akhilam means everything else. Everything, anyat akhilam, everything else. Anityam is transient. And this itself is the biggest lesson we have to keep in mind and always remind ourselves. And when I say to myself, Aham Brahmasmi, or I say to myself, I am not this body, where does this knowledge come from? The same Nitya Anitya. Atma Anatma. So I am the Atman, I am that Nitya Vastu, that I am that permanent. I'm always there, I will always be there. Okay, so I will always be there. Bhagavad Gita shloka, which doesn't strike my mind at this point of time, but which basically Sri Krishna says in second chapter to Arjuna, Natvevaham jatunasam natvam neme janadipaha nachaiva na bhavishyamaha sarve vaimatah param. Arjuna, it is not only you, not only me, and not only all these warriors that are stationed here in the war battlefield. We all have been there in the past and we will continue to be there in the future. Now it is to be understood that what is that we, the common oneness of the Atma. How is it that if it was there, why is it back here again? It is not that we're not referring to the body having to take birth after birth. That is transient. The Atma will always be there, it does not die. So that is what is being mentioned as the Nitya Vastu here. Anitya is everything else thereafter. So you name anything in this cosmos, it is Anitya thereafter. If it is a sun, if it is the moon, the stars, the various devatas who have a name and a form, everything thereafter is going to be Anitya. Okay. Mind you, we're still talking about Adhikari. We haven't completed that. We're carrying on with that. Then the next one after Nitya Anitya Vastu Viveka is the Ihamutra Arthaphala Bhoga Viraga. What does that mean? Iha means here. Amutra means thereafter. So here means this material world that we are living in, or the mortal world. Amutra means all the other planes beyond this earthly plane. So we may have desires not only to fulfill in this earthly plane, we may have desires in the worlds beyond as well. Like I want to go to heaven, or I want to, you know, go to Pitraloka, as we have looked at it, the ancestral plane, and so on. So those have to be kind of given up, is the second measure that is being talked about. Again, what are these four? These four are means to attain knowledge. Aihikanam srakchandana vanitadi vishayabhoganam कर्मजन्यतया नित्य नित्यत्वात् आमुष्मिकानाम् अपि अमृतादि विषयभोगानाम् अनित्यतया तेभ्यः नितरां विरतिः इहामुत्रार्थ फलभोग विरागः. So this is called ihamutrartha falabhoga viraga. So I mentioned iha, earthly plane, amutra, other planes, artha. Artha is basically a thing to be obtained. Phala is the result. Bhoga is the enjoyment. So my desire to enjoy the fruits of action, we can say, that desire, letting go of the desire or renunciation of that desire, as is mentioned above, renunciation of all the pleasures and desires of this and the other worlds, is what was mentioned here. So what are the details of it? Aihikanam. So Aihikanam, of the people dwelling in this earthly plane, of those, Srak Chandana Vanitadi. So Shrak basically is, I think it is flowers and garlands. Let me just check. Yeah, garlands. Chandana is sandalwood paste. Vanitadi, naturally, all those attractions are being mentioned, like, seeking company of women, and that is being mentioned. Of course, we need to keep in mind that this is being handed over to the monks as a text. And desiring pleasure in all these things, karmajanyataya, whatever actions that are born out of the doing all these things, anityatvat. So that should be anityatvat, not nityatvat. Anityatvat. So because of that transient nature of all these things, and then amushmikanam, again talking about people who are desirous of not only things in this earthly plane but other planes. Amritadi, here amrita means death, amrita means immortality. So immortality would be referred to moksha, which is liberation. But here apparently the context is amritam, as in going to heaven. So the desire is to go to heaven, considering that to be beyond death. But it's not truly beyond death, because you will ultimately still have to come back. So it's not truly immortality. So all these are to be given up, renounced. And then we are going to see the six treasures, that is the Shamadayastu Shama damop uparati titiksha samadhana shraddhakyaha. So there are six of them, and they are well known as Shama, Dama, Uparati, Titiksha, Samadhana, Shraddha. Then we will see one at a time after that. What is Shama? Shama is restraint of mind's outward tendency. So here it looks kind of, they look similar, sound similar. So I tried to kind of uh, put them separately as much as I could. Shama, Dama, and Uparati may sound very similar. So, Shama has been spoken of as restraint of mind's outward tendencies. So, there is an interesting concept that I have understood reading, because our modern way of looking at mind is it thinks, and it is therefore to do with thought. Imagination can also be attributed to mind. Of course, the various other things, planning and judgment, everything. Here, what is fascinating is, let us say that the sense organs like eye sees an object. Its job is no more than perception. Like simply, if we take physics, a tree is seen, the tree reflects through the eye on the retina, and then the signals go to the back of the brain. Okay, that's good, fair enough. But that is all it's going to do. Mind, according to the Vedanta that we are reading, mind actually takes the shape of the object. So it's not just thought that we need to think about here. Mind actually goes, takes the shape of the object, and it then makes it its own, and thereafter its various tendencies, whatever tends to happen. So here, when we say mind's outward tendency, this is what we need to keep in mind. Rather than just a thought, it is actually beyond that. It has this ability to go, take the shape of that object and own it in its mental space. शमः तावत् श्रवणादि व्यतिरिक्त विषयेभ्यः मनसः निग्रहः. I'm deliberately changing manaso to manasaha. That is because of the sandhi rule. What is shama? It is restraint of mind's outward tendency. But here there is a exception mentioned, an exception which is shravanadhi vyatirikta. Shravana basically is hearing. Adi vyatirikta. Vyatirikta is except the hearing. But hearing of what? Hearing to music, hearing to gossip. Which one is that hearing we are talking about? It is hearing to scriptures and um, satsanga, satpurusha's words. Okay, so those are accepted apparently, with the exception of hearing to the Vedic scriptures and such knowledge. Everything else that is restrained as a mental activity is shama. What is dhamma? Dhamma, not dhamma, dhamma is restraint of the sense organs now. So earlier it was the mind's outward tendency. Now it is simply the very mechanical function of the senses itself. बाह्येन्द्रियाणां तत्व्यतिरिक्त विषयेभ्यः निवर्तनम्. Same, exactly the same as above, except the hearing of the Vedic scriptures or the name of the Bhagavan or chanting and such things which are pious activities. Except that, the engagement of sense organs on any external information, the restraint of it is Dhamma. So far, so clear. But what is Uparati? Uparati is Nivartita Nivartitanaam etesham tat व्यतिरिक्त विषयेभ्यः उपरमण उपरमणानाम उपरतिः अथवा विहितानां कर्मणां विधिना परित्यागः. So nivartitanam etesham. So already certain things have been restrained. What are restrained? The mind has been restrained. Sense organs have been restrained. So nivartitanam etesham, of these. Again, tat vyatirikta, accepting, hearing scriptures and so on, or scriptural activities. Vishayebhyaha, when you say Vishayebhyaha, Vishaya, that word I have forgotten to talk about. Vishaya means external source of information. Anything it could be. It could be, as I said, a person, it could be a tree, it could be a mobile phone, it could be a song, it could be a visual something. All those are Vishayas, information leads. So everything is kind of received indiscriminately by the sense organs, right? Everything is received indiscriminately by the sense organs. Sense organs can't filter out. It is the mind which then can put in a filter saying, okay, I don't want to receive this information. I'm not sending my mind to capture that and bring it back. So that is Shama. Dhamma is deliberately utilizing my intellect to not allow the sense organs to engage on certain things. So that is Dhamma. So having restrained the sense organs and the mind, except the Vedic kind of scriptures and whatnot, Uparamananam, again the spelling is wrong there, Uparamananam Uparatihi. So the withdrawal of the sense organs and the mind thereafter, keeping it withdrawn. That's the best way to put it. Keeping it withdrawn, and an extra effort, extra conscious effort to keep them withdrawn is Uparati. Athava, there is an alternative explanation given here, Athava, or Vihitanam Karmanam Vidhina Parityagaha. So apparently the second explanation is more for those who are in monkhood, where they are exempt from even performing actions which are sanctioned through the Vedic scriptures, like Nitya Karma, Naimittika Karma, those kind of things. They don't need to engage in those as well, and therefore the excuse from these prescribed actions is also Uparati, is what is being mentioned here. Okay. All right. So let me just stop here in case anybody wishes to tell me or ask me. I mean, ask me basically if there is anything you wish to know. Mind you, none of this so far is the Vedantasara. This is not at all Vedanta yet. We are only kind of doing the preliminary portion of setting the stage to before we jump into the topic. But these are all important from a different point of view altogether, because a lot of vocabulary comes into play, a lot of terminology is used, and which over a period of time, once we familiarize, makes it easy. Some of these things have overlaps with Ashtanga Yoga. Some of the things we covered so far have overlaps with, as I said, the very structure of how a text is written, and so on. Okay, I'll proceed then. No questions means two things. One, completely understood. Second, nothing understood.
Yes, could I ask something?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
I was surprised to hear about sins and penance
Yeah.
and hell, because from what I understood from our previous discussions, this wasn't really something that Sadananda is strong on. And here we had penance and hell and sins and rituals and all these things.
Yeah. Yeah. So nothing in Sanatana Dharma is laid in it's not a rigid kind of a formula. Second thing we need to talk about is what was practiced in those days. None of that is, or most of it is not being practiced now at all. So hardly many people do the Nitya karmas, like Sandhya Vandanam and so on. Very a handful of people are actually doing those. And same goes with Naimittika karma. We'll not talk about the Kamya and the Nishiddha karma. Those anyway need to be kind of, we need to let go. So there are apparently, again, if you read Vedantasara, the book itself, there are two schools who actually hold on to, let's for instance, Mimamsakas, the ones who actually hold Vedas and the Karma Kanda very dear, close to their heart. For them, it is compulsory that you have to do Nitya Karma, the the all the kind of daily rituals need to be done. There is no exception, and understandably, they want that to be practiced if you are sincere in our school of philosophy. Vedanta apparently says that is not so. We don't expect people to do these things as a compulsory kind of a ritual. For us, according to us, it is obligatory. So between these two, naturally, um, Vedanta is more to do with jnana path, knowledge seeking path. So understandably, it is not laying too much focus emphasis on the need for rituals. Whereas the Mimamsakas are very much focused on doing things, doing yajna, doing karma. And for somebody to be performing it day in and day out, if you don't have the discipline, it is meaningless. So therefore, it is also understood from their point of view that you have to perform. So it's a choice. At the end of the day, we are free to choose which philosophy we want to go to. Even till date, some may prefer to go down the route of doing yajna and daily rituals. And there's a beautiful mention in Vedanta Sara itself. I pulled it out. I'll just see if I can. Yeah. So this text talks about what are the benefits of doing the Nitya Karma. Nitya Karma Anushtanat Dharmotpattihi Dharmotpattehe Papahanihi Tataha Chitta Tataha Samsara Yathatmyavabodha Tato Vairagyam Tato Mumukshatvam Tataha Tadupaya Paryoshanam, and so on. It goes on to say, we'll skip to the English part of it. So what is it saying? Nitya karma anusthana dharmotpatihi. So first of all, when you perform daily obligatory duties, it says our focus on dharma gets sharpened, of merits. It brings in merits in us. When it brings in merits in us, papahanihi, so our Sins, when we say sin, anything is a sin for that matter. It's not necessarily doing bad things to other people. It could be mental activity as well. It could be thought, action, or action. So anything which you believe is only going to make you gross and pull you down. That is papa. It's not just about doing bad things. So anything that you believe is going to drag you down in your own kind of spiritual progress is papa itself. Um, then tataha chitta shuddhihi, okay, purification of the mind happens. Then after that comes the um, understanding that I am actually in bondage to this world. And when we develop that understanding that I'm actually in bondage in this world, then I develop further understanding, oh, I need to let go of it. That is vairagya. And only when I develop that let go attitude will I start talking about liberation or mumukshatvam. And when I start talking about mumukshatvam, then I start my search for it. How do I do it? How do I go about learning? Then, it takes to the next step, which is how do I renounce my actions? And then practice of yoga. And then inclination of the mind towards going inwards. And then reading the Mahavakyas or the texts which would say that confirm that I am that Brahman, and letting go of the ignorance. So this he says is this is written. Can't remember. I'll mention. I'll tell you later. Naishkarmya Siddhi. The book is called Naishkarmya Siddhi. So it's picked up from that. So my answer is um, sin is a direct translation into English, and it's not necessarily doing bad things. It is anything which brings me down in my spiritual progress is to be considered as a sin. Yes, papa is a word in Sanskrit. It is there. It is not to be considered as not being there. And similarly, punya is a word which is there too. Naturally, when you say papa and punya, we are talking about the dual, the dichotomy, sin and good deeds. There's no equivalent of punya in English. So papa and punya. But when you are making spiritual progress, you have to go beyond these two. In fact, the way we need to perform karma is also not worrying about whether I am doing good deeds or bad deeds. Even if it is good deeds, you need to overcome that. And even in Sandhya Vandanam, there is a particular kind of shloka which says that every day the person recites it saying, irrespective of whether it is good or bad actions that I have done, let them all be erased. So you don't want any impressions laid on you. So it's not just about sins, it is about everything. Is it the monks and people turning towards Jnana Marga have already done some preparation in their past lives? Is it right? Yeah, very true. So it can be understood through our own awareness that how come a particular person is so kind of evolved spiritually and is able to kind of grasp the essence and make way forward. Um, yes, you are right. It must be because they have already done a lot of knowledge seeking that has already happened in the past lives, and they are now in a position. Bahunam janmanamante jnanavan mam prapadyate. Vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabha. So a person who may be considered as a jnani would have gone through so many lives of preparation before they have become a jnani now. So it is understood. And similarly, in Vedantasara also, we have seen very clearly that the adhikari is one who Not only it would have attained the knowledge of the Vedas, it could be this life, Janmani or Janmantareva. It could be in earlier lives as well. So that's true. And it doesn't have to be a monk. It could be a very a common man as well. A commoner may also be able to reach that stage of moksha. And it doesn't have to be somebody who is out of the samsarika bandhana. Even while living as a grihastha, one may be able to attain moksha. And the person could come from any varna for that matter. It doesn't have to be only a brahmana varna. Any varna, a person from any varna could be practicing their own kind of what do you call it? Their duties, their occupation, and yet still be able to kind of reach that oneness. So, okay, so we'll just do a few more and close for today. When I say I would do few more, I hope to finish the adhikari part at least, and then we can close for today. So the next one is titiksha. So we've done shama, dhamma, uparati, and now we are doing titiksha. Titiksha is shitoshna, shitoshnadi dvandva sahishnutta. Shitoshnadi dvandva sahishnutta. It's a very easy one compared to the earlier ones that we have done. Shita and Ushna. Shita means cold, Ushna means heat, hot. So we are looking at dualities here, the dichotomies. One and Dvandva is that, the dichotomy or the duality. The one who is able to bear those dualities, and there are so many dualities one can talk about. It's not just about hot and cold. It could be victory and defeat. It could be praise and insult. It could be profit or a loss. It could be acceptance versus rejection. You name it. There's so many kind of dualities like that. A person, this is a slight difference here. A person who is able to bear those, and there is another person or another principle which is overcome those, look beyond those two. So looking beyond those two would be a sthita prajna. Sthita prajna is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, which is you apply the intellect again and you master the art of looking beyond or going beyond the dualities. Prajahati yada kaman sarvan parthamanogatan atmanyeva atmanatushta sthita prajna. Then he says, Dukkeshu anudigna manaha, Sukeshu vigata spruhaha, Vetaraga bhayakrodaha, Sthita dhihi munihi uchate. So one who is Dukkeshu anudigna manaha, in difficult circumstances, he is not dejected. Sukheshu vigata spruhaha, in joyful moments, he is not overexcited. So he is able to keep himself stable, afloat. In a way, he is emotionally stable. So that is Tita Prajnata. Very similar but different is Titiksha, where you are able to bear the two differences. You insult me, I bear it. You praise me, I equally kind of bear it. In a sense, it's very similar, but more perhaps applicable, where we can see bearing with the suffering is a lot more easily understood. So that would be Titiksha. And a nice shloka is mentioned, Sahanam sarva dukkhanam aprapti. No, let me read it in sorry. English is very difficult to Transliteration. Sahanam sarva dukkhanam apratikara purvakam chinta vilaparahitam sati tiksha nigadyate. So sahanam sarva dukkhanam. So in all kinds of miseries, having that sahanam, the patience. Apratikara purvakam. What is pratikara? Pratikara is revenge. Generally, in our own terms, it is revenge. So, having this sense in us that I want to take a revenge for, or I want to set things right. Well, it's a double-edged sword. Sometimes it works because we need to stand up for ourselves, and sometimes it only kind of makes things worse. Whichever way it is, both are equally important in their own place. But apratikara purvakam, perhaps a mental preparation where you are doing it, let's say you're still fighting for justice, you're doing so without having vengeance in your mind. So you're able to bear the suffering in that way. Chinta vilaparhitam. So therefore, there is no anxiety and there is no depression. Rahitam, without those two, sa titiksha nigadyate. So that is called titiksha, where you are able to bear the suffering without subjecting yourself to depression or anxiety. Then the next one is samadhanam. Samadhanam is oneness through constant concentration. What is it? Nigrahitasya manasaha shravanadau tadανuguna vishaye cha samadhi samadhanam. So whatever the mental restraint that we have spoken of earlier, what do we do with that mind now? We need to focus it in something. So until now we said accept Shravana, accept hearing Vedic scriptures, accept. That accept now becomes the thing that we need to focus ourselves upon. So nigrahitasya manasaha shravanadav tadanuguna vishaye cha samadhi. So now that I have shifted my focus from everything else onto the scriptural knowledge, for instance, or Guru Upadesha, for instance, once I have focused on it, now I am meditating upon it. What do you mean by meditation? You are learning it, remembering it, relearning it, contemplating on it, thinking over its meaning, applying it. Everything you are able to do, but that's it. It's almost like a oneness that you are going into it. That itself is samadhanam. Shraddha. Shraddha is also very important in a guru shishya relationship. What is it? Group Gurupadishta Vedanta Vakyeshu Vishwasaha Shraddha. So Gurupadesha Guru Guru Upadishta Vedanta Vakyeshu. So whatever the Guru has done Upadesha, that Vedanta Vakyeshu, in those Vakyeshu means in those sentences, or here it is passages, scriptural passages, Vedanta Vakyeshu. Vishwasaha, that surrendering yourself not only to the Guru, but a complete trust or surrender in the words of the Vedanta or the Vedas or Upanishads or Bhagavad Gita or the Brahma Sutra. So your complete trust or surrender in these kind of passages or the texts or the sentences or words having been instructed by the Guru is Shraddha. So the Shraddha is in there in the Guru as well as the scriptures. Then Mumukshatvam, nothing much beyond saying the intense desire to attain liberation. That itself is Mumukshatvam. Now he summarizes Adhikari. Evam bhutaha pramataadhikari Shantodananta इत्यादि श्रुतेः उक्तञ्च प्रशान्तचित्ताय जितेन्द्रियाय च प्रहीनदोषाय यतोक्तकारिणे गुणान्वितायानुगताय सर्वदा प्रदेयमेतत् सततं मुमुक्षवे इति उपदेश सहस्री. So there is a book called Upadesha Sahasri, and there is a shloka mentioned in that, taking that as an example, because naturally Sadananda would like to give references wherever it is required in proposing his concept on the text of the Vedanta. So evam bhutaha, in this fashion, having been all these or having all these eligible criteria, pramata, the one who is seeking knowledge, becomes the adhikari, the eligible aspirant, having shanta danta ityadi shrutehe. Apparently, there is a particular text which starts off with Shanto Danta in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Ityadi Shrutehe, it said. What is Shanta? Shanta is peace, but here it is referring to Shama. Danta is being referred to as Dama. Okay, so Ityadi, when it says, there is a further text later on. If you look in on page 28 in paragraph 3, Tasmadevam तस्मादेवं वित्त शान्तः दान्त उपरतिस्तितिक्षुः समाहितो भूत्वा आत्मनि एव आत्मानं पश्यति is a text mentioned there. Okay, what does it mean? Tasmadevam vitt, a person who is able to focus himself like this, in what? Shantaha, which is the Shantaha is Shama, Dantaha is Dama, Uparatihi, we already heard, Titikshuhu, Titiksha, Samahitaha, Bhutva. So he, having been all these things, Atmani eva, in his own Atma, in his own self, Atmanam, he puts himself, Pashyati. So he sees himself, is what is being said. So one who becomes an eligible student, thus practicing all these things, Shama, Dama, Uparati, Titiksha, Samadhana, and Shraddha, and in this fashion, is able to kind of see himself by himself in him. Okay. So Prashanta Chittaya, now it's an important shloka that is being mentioned here, which is, to such an eligible student, it is but natural for the guru to start imparting knowledge. Who is this eligible student? Prashanta Chittaya, the one who has a still mind. Jitendriyaya, to that one who had restrained his sense organs. Uh, Prahina, wait a minute. I'll see the Sanskrit text. Prahina doshaya. Prahina doshaya. So one whose doshas, weaknesses have gone away. Yatokta karine. And the one who does things as he is told is obedient student. Gunanvitaya, the one who is now nicely kind of balanced in good attributes within himself. Anugataya sarvada, the one who actually follows the guru always. Pradeyam etat satatam mumukshave. Mumukshave, to the one who is desirous of attaining liberation. Pradeyam etat satatam. This knowledge has to be imparted, is what it says. Because he is now an eligible student. And there is no doubt in Guru's mind to therefore start imparting knowledge to that kind of a eligible student. Okay, so we can complete it. Yeah, we can stop here because this is as much as we can cover. Um, well, time is up as well, but importantly, we have completed the adhikari part. Then the next session we can look at Vishayaha, which is the substance, subject matter, Sambandhaha, the relation, Prayojanam, the benefit, and then we look at the necessity of the Guru, and then we will start the subject matter, the very reason why we are doing this text itself. We will start talking about it in the next session. Yep, basic question, Santosh Kumar. Where this Vedanta comes in our Sanatana philosophy? Is it part of Vedas or any other? Again, taking the book into consideration, Vedanta, the name as it sounds, Anta means end. Veda, of course, is Veda. Now, I have not read Vedas, so I won't be able to give you first-hand information. But it is said to have two basic themes. One is Karma Kanda, and another is Jnana. So Karma Kanda deals with all the kind of rituals, what to be done, what not to be done, and how to be done, all those things. And there are schools of philosophies who focus only on that, and they continue to practice it for their own spiritual upliftment. Then, but those who follow the um, Vedanta believe that that is not the end of it. The end of Veda is Jnana, and Jnana actually is ultimately about who am I, where have I come from, and um, am I part of the oneness? That is what it ultimately leads to, and that is what gives you the moksha, whereas the karma kanda only can take you as far as a heavenly plane. It doesn't lead you to moksha. So therefore, jnana kanda or jnana is the one which actually leads you to moksha, and that is how Upanishads have been written. And Upanishads knowledge, the essence of it itself is to give you this understanding of you are the Brahman and you need to attain it. So that is Vedanta. So Vedanta, of course, is the basic fundamental aspect of Sanatana Dharma. And I would say that that is the basic foundation for everything, irrespective of whether you practice only bhakti path or you practice karma path, whichever path you take it. Ultimately, the Atma Vidya, the understanding that you are the soul and you are taking birth after birth, and there is the Paramatma, and you are one with the Paramatma. So that is, so when I say one with Paramatma, there are differences going to be emerging from thereafter. So some schools would say that no, I'm not the same as Paramatma. Paramatma is different. I am different. I can only serve Paramatma. I can never be the same as Paramatma. How is it possible? Because Paramatma can create the entire universe. Can you create it? No, you can't. So therefore, at the best, you can only be a dasa. So this is the Visishta Advaita philosophy, I believe, and Dvaita philosophy also will be very similar. So there will be differences thereafter. So same Vedanta can be discussed in by so many different streams. So we don't need to go into the details of it. So this particular book will focus only on Advaita, the non-dual approach, which means I am the same as the Paramatma. So this is not going to talk about the Dvaita philosophy or Visishta Advaita philosophy. So those things will be discussed by in different streams of philosophies altogether. सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ओम शांति 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 ही ऑल राइट
Thank you.
नमस्ते